In this video, I will explain to you how to use an ADOConnection and set it up to an ADOQuery component that links up to a database. The database that we're going to be looking at is called DB Movies, and it contains one table called TBL actors. In order to set up this project, which is a default project with a single form that's currently on the screen, I need to create a data module. We click on File, New, we go to Other, and here is our data module. Click on OK. I'll just make that a little bigger. I then need my first component, which is my ADOConnection. There it is, double click on that, and I've got my connection. The second component I need is my ADOQuery. That's the table. Here I need the query. So I've got my connection, my query, and I then need to get my data source. So here is my data source. Now to configure this, we double click the connection. Ideally, you should be renaming the components. I'm going to leave them as the default names. Let's build our connection string. Click on build. And the database is a Microsoft Jet 4.0. I select that provider. Next. I browse now for my database. That is in a folder project 1, and there it is, DB Movies. I quickly test my connection. Connection succeeds. I go to the advanced. I don't want to share, deny. I click on, so I remove that, read, write, and select the read. And this then sets up my connection string. I don't want to use any login. So I will then set the login prompt, which is set to true. I double click that and change it to false. I'm happy with the way my connection is now set up. Let's now take our query and link this to our connection. I then look for a property called connection. There it is here. I click on that drop down and I select ADOConnection 1. So that is now linked to the connection. But with the query, we would need to set up a default query if you want to. It's not compulsory. So what I will do is I'll go to the SQL property, click on the 3 dots, and I'm going to set up a default query by saying select star from, and it's TBL actors. So that's my default query. And let's make that active. So I'll set active to true. If there was a problem with the way you typed your SQL statement, you would not be able to make the active property true. So that is now configured, the query. Let's now take our data source and link that to our query. We look at the data set property and we select ADOQuery 1. Very quickly, let's just give it a quick run to see that our program is running and we don't have any issues in terms of having any properties set incorrectly. It is running. I'm happy with that. The next step requires me to move on to the form. So let's go on to the form. The form design has nothing in it. And I want a grid. So let's search for a grid. And that's not the one I'm looking for. I'm looking for the DB grid. And let's place that onto our form. And we then want to link this grid to our data module that we have just set up. The data module, that is my unit 1, and my default form, that is my unit 2. So in my unit 2, I need to create a reference, and in the user section, I will reference my unit 1 so that I can then have access to those components. I then go to my grid, and in my grid, I look for the data source property. And for the data source property, I should be able to see my data module. There it is here. If you did not set up your reference, which sometimes you could forget, this does not appear. So now I can set that up. And here I've got my table, which has the actor ID, the actor name, actor surname, the date of birth, age, cell number, and is local, and annual earnings. So I'm happy that my query now works. One more thing that I'll quickly show you is how we could do this through code. So I'm going to go back to my data module, and in my query, I'm going to set the active property to false. By setting the active property to false, and when I go back to my form, you will notice that it does not detect the TBL actors. So I'm going to place a button. I'm going to place a button on my form, and I'll call this button display. And we're going to write some code. When the button is pressed, it will now activate the grid with the TBL actors. So let's go about writing the code. So here, the first thing I want to do is work with my data module. So I'm going to say with data module 1, do begin. I then need to set up 3 statements with regards to my ADOQuery. The first one is ADOQuery1 dot SQL dot clear. I then want my ADOQuery dot SQL dot add. Here I add my string that has the SQL statement. I'm going to say select star from TBL actors. That is my basic query that I want to do. And then I want ADOQuery1 dot. We want to open that to execute it. So those are the 3 statements that we require. You can then use any type of select statement here, which could include a where statement, an order by, and depending on the way you structure your SQL statement, that will be displayed in our grid. Let's give this a test. I will run it. And when I run it, you will notice there's nothing on the grid. That's because the active property was set to false. When I click on display, now the information in the table is displayed. I hope this video helps you in setting up your ADOQuery components to your database. Thank you.